It's the radio guy, Mike Prince. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Mike Prince Show, coming to you each and every day right here at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. Our social media handle, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are at the Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network. Our website, obnradio.com. The 24-hour dial-in message line, 713-570-6736. I want to thank our sponsors, Attorney Lee Van Richardson of Hempstead, Texas, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance of Waller, Texas, and Diva Skin Conditioner at divafeet.com. And without any further delay, we'll jump right into today's episode. Well, I know that we should have had enough time to get the Prairie View bad taste out of your mouth when it comes to the football. And I know it's still tough for some of you, but we must continue to move forward. Got a chance to speak with Coach Dooley on the SWAC teleconference on yesterday, discuss some of the future direction and plans for the team. You get a chance to check that out. Simply go to either Spreaker.com or you can find it somewhere floating around our social media handles between Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Of course, that's at the Mike Prince Show. And at some point, you got to do like Teddy Pendergrass and just let it go and move on to the next journey. But just because you let it go don't mean you're leaving it alone. And it's something that definitely is going to have to be dealt with more than likely in the off season as far as the future of Prairie View football program. But meanwhile, volleyball and soccer are positioning themselves for postseason play. Soccer has secured the number 2 spot for the SWAC soccer tournament, which will be hosted on the campus of Prairie View coming up in the very near future on that. And volleyball just completed its roundup on the eastern side of things. And the standings for volleyball are shaping up pretty nicely for Panther Nation. Right now, according to the latest standings for the Southwestern Athletic Conference, you have Alabama A&M sitting on top with an 11-3 conference record. They're followed by Southern University, they're at 7-2. Jackson State's 10-3. Prairie View is 10-3. Alabama State is 8-6. Texas Southern's 8-7. Grambling is at 4-10. Pine Bluff is at 3-8. Alcorn is at 2-11. And Mississippi Valley is at 0-12. And it's surprising that Valley is where they are. Looking at the history of Valley's volleyball and softball programs in particular, they had always fared off pretty decently. But nonetheless, it is what it is. The tournaments which are coming up due will be in Itta Bena, Mississippi. And Prairie View would actually be the number 4 seed according to the standings of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And I'm pretty much assuming that they're determining this by loss columns because Southern is at 7-2, they're number 2, and overall they are 7-14. So it'd be interesting to see how all of that unfolds.
Attention Waller ISD voters, have you heard? There's a Waller ISD school bond election on the November 5th ballot. All projects directly impact our kids, and there's no anticipated tax increase. Early voting is underway now through November 1st. Waller County residents can go vote at the Waller County Community Center located at 21274 FM 1098 in Prairie View, or the WISD Administration Building located at 2214 Waller Street in Waller. For more information, including bond details and a list of complete polling locations, visit wallerisd.net. Please go vote.
And since we gave you the standings in volleyball, we might as well go ahead and give you the standings as far as soccer is concerned. Howard on top with a 9-1 record. Prairie View is 8-1. Alabama A&M 6-3. Jackson State's at 5-3. Texas Southern's at 5-3-1. Grambling State's at 5-4. Alabama State is at 4-5-1. Southern University is at 3-5-1. Pine Bluff is at 3-6. Alcorn is at 0-8. And Mississippi Valley is at 0-9. So as we mentioned, the soccer tournament will be on the campus of Prairie View. Meanwhile, on the football side of things, the race is really beginning to heat up, or as they would say, the plot begins to thicken now as we're coming toward the back end of the season. Prairie View, of course, will have a bye week as they prepare for Edward Waters. But there are some interesting matchups that are scheduled for the course of this week. Alabama State will take on Mississippi Valley. Texas Southern will take on Grambling. Alabama A&M will take on Southern University. And the Arkansas Pine Bluff will take on Jackson State. Over in the East, as far as the standings go, Alcorn State's at 4-0, 6-2 overall record. They're number one. Alabama A&M 2-1 conference record, 5-3 overall. Jackson State 2-1 conference play, 3-5 overall. Alabama State 2-2, 3-4 overall. And Mississippi Valley's 1-3, 2-6 overall. And it's amazing how a couple of weeks could change the course of an entire season. Jackson State winning consecutive overtime games over Mississippi Valley and Prairie View now find themselves in the heat of conversation as far as the eastern side of the division is concerned through the Southwestern Athletic Conference. They and Alabama A&M are tied at 2-1, but it goes without saying that Alcorn is definitely in the driver's seat at 4-0. Remaining schedule for Alcorn will have them at Grambling on November 9th, home for Alabama A&M, and then they'll finish up on the road November 23rd at Jackson State. So they have Alabama A&M and Jackson State who are lurking behind. They have to deal with them in order to solidify yet another Eastern Division title. Now, over in the West is a bit more complicated to a degree, but not too bad. Southern University's at 3-1 on top of the Western Division. They're 4-4 overall. Arkansas Pine Bluff is at 2-2 with a 5-3 overall record. Prairie View sits at 2-3 with a 3-5 overall record. Grambling's at 1-2 with a 3-4 overall record. And then Texas Southern's at 0-4 with an 0-8 overall record. Now, the interesting piece in all of this is going to be Grambling State. Although Prairie View was able to get ahead of them, Grambling is still in the hunt of things. Because of the fact they were victorious over Pine Bluff, they would have a head-to-head over Pine Bluff. With that score, they beat them, 39-33. So Grambling has remaining Texas Southern, Alcorn, Mississippi Valley, then of course they close out the Bayou Classic with Southern University. Now, hypothetically speaking, if Grambling were to run the table, then it would boil down to the Bayou Classic late in November. And it would take a whole lot of things to go right if Prairie View is to have a dark outside chance of standing when the dust settles. And that's what happens when you have to depend on other people. You got to hope, wish, and pray that a whole lot of things work out for you. But hypothetically speaking, when you look at Gramblin's schedule, one would assume, and this is just hypothetical, speaking out loud. I don't want anybody saying, man, you blah, 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 blah. You know how y'all get sometime. Let's just say Grambling beats Texas Southern, loses to Alcorn, beat Mississippi Valley, and they beat Southern University. So technically speaking, if Grambling, which has 4 games remaining, were to go 3-1 on their final stretch, that would improve their conference record to 4-3. Meanwhile, Prairie View would have to win out their remaining conference games between Pine Bluff and Alabama State, which would bring them to 4-3. Then there's these guys from Jag Nation. Southern right now is at 3-1. And if any of this were to come to fruition, you would have to hope that somehow Alabama A&M can get the victory November 2nd. Then hope they stumble at Jackson State November 16th. And then lose to Grambling on November 30th. So technically speaking, Southern would have to tank their remaining 3 games in order for Prairie View to even be remotely considered to represent the West in the SWAC championship, providing that Prairie View takes care of business on their end. But wait, the plot thickens. There's a group that goes by the symbol of the Golden Lions, representing Pine Bluff, Arkansas, that would have a lot to say about this situation. Right now, Pine Bluff in the number 2 spot of the Western Division with a 2-2 record in conference play. Now let's look at this scenario. The remaining games left for the Golden Lions at Jackson State, at Prairie View, and then home for Texas Southern. Golden Lions are playing some inspired ball right now behind head football coach Cedric Thomas. And all of this is wishful thinking at the moment. But that's where we are. So the Panthers have themselves in a somewhat difficult situation. Southern's in the driver's seat. The Golden Lions still have hope. Grambling is on the upswing. And Alcorn is in cruise control. Don't you just love this time of year?
Your education, your health care, your community, your future. Your vote counts for many things. Take control. Get registered. Get educated. Get out and vote. Learn more at www.vote411.org. This is a public service announcement from Open Mic Broadcast Network.
Meanwhile, over in the MEAC, things are not as complicated, but still somewhat congested. FAMU sitting on top 5-0, but they will not be eligible for postseason play. So then it puts Bethune-Cookman with a 4-1 record, North Carolina A&T with a 3-1 record, South Carolina State's at 3-1, North Carolina Central's at 2-2, Norfolk State's at 1-3, Howard is at 1-3, Morgan State's at 1-4, and Delaware State is at 0-5. Now Bethune-Cookman happens to be somewhat in the driver's seat as well. They had a devastating loss last week to South Carolina State, but more than likely they would rebound against Delaware State. Then they'll have a big showdown November 16th between North Carolina A&T, and then they finish up with FAMU. So if you were to look at this thing hypothetical yet again, it's possible that Bethune could end up going 1-2 on their last 3 games. And if that were the case, they would end up with a 4-3 record. Well, 5-3 record. Meanwhile, North Carolina A&T, who sits at 3-1 as we speak today, on their remaining schedule is South Carolina State, Morgan State, Bethune-Cookman, and North Carolina Central. It would be safe to assume you would beat Morgan State, North Carolina Central, and you have 2 dogfights with South Carolina State and Bethune-Cookman. So this thing is going to boil down to possibly North Carolina A&T and Bethune-Cookman battling to represent the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl. And from right now status, it appears it would be either Alcorn or Southern to represent the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I know it sounds confusing, but as the old folks used to say, it'll make sense after a while. HBCU Power Rankings. And number 5, it has Southern University. At number 4, South Carolina State. Number 3, North Carolina A&T. Number 2, Florida A&M. And number 1, Alcorn. Now, being a SWAC guy, I'm all right with Alcorn being represented at number 1 spot. But I do scratch my head for a moment due to the fact that North Carolina A&T was beyond a shadow of a doubt the number 1 HBCU football program in the nation. And then FAMU took them down. FAMU is still undefeated in conference play, but yet they are behind Alcorn, who too is undefeated in conference play. But a slight edge, if you would, I would think would go to FAMU because they beat the man that was the man in order to become the man. But that is the intriguing part of polls, talk shows, and whatever. They're all opinions, and they create great buzz and conversation. So there is a glimpse of things as they unfold in a nutshell throughout the world of HBCU sports. I am going to exit stage left for right now, but I do encourage you guys to keep calling 713-570-6736. You can inbox me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at The Mike Prince Show. Or you can visit the website at obnradio.com or YouTube. A lot of you guys leave messages on YouTube at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. I've got to go. But until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.